Hey guys, in this video I'm going to take you along for the ride with me while I produce a song for an artist. Her name is Berman, and this is going to be an awesome song by the time we're done with it. There's a couple of ways that you can produce a song. You can have an artist come into the studio with you. They might want to play some of the instruments. You might help create some of it. It might be a team effort in that way. Or in this instance, you might have someone who kind of commissions you a song. They give you a couple of references, a couple of ideas, and then they give you a skeleton of a track and they ask you to create something in that kind of vein. So that's what we're doing today. I've got a couple of inspirations to work off of, and then hopefully by the end of it, we're gonna have an awesome instrumental track that Chelsea then can come in and lay down some killer vocals on. Now, the way one of these projects typically starts is the artist will send me a demo. They'll send me just usually like a voice memo, just them playing guitar and singing the song, and I'll get the overall feel and structure of the song. And also, I'll generally take that file like I've done here in Logic, and I'll drop it in, and I'll find roughly the BPM they were playing the song at. Just kind of get an app where you can tap out the BPM and figure that out. And then I'll work my way through with flex time, and I will snap it to the beat, usually just pulling the marker across onto every kind of like beginning of the bar, so it all kind of ends up in the same tempo eventually. It takes a couple of minutes. You just go through the song, and then you can kind of fine tune that, get it pretty tight. It does warp it a little bit, but at the same time, it doesn't matter too much. We're just basically getting this set to a tempo. And then once you've got it to a set tempo, like we've got this at the moment, let's just play a quick little section like the chorus. You know, it's not perfect, but it's in time, and that gives us something to work off of then. Now, while it's in flex mode, I can also audition trying new tempos. So I can come up to the tempo and just change this, can boost it up to 110. What's the chorus sound like if we did it 10 beats quicker? You know, or what's it going to sound like if it was a bit slower? So you get the idea. You can play around and find that perfect tempo to get the project started. At the moment, we've got it sitting at 100 BPM. Whether that changes, I'll find out once I maybe lay down some sort of drum ideas. I'm going to use a bit of MIDI to get started, and then I'll get the feel for it. If I feel like it's dragging, might speed it up a little bit. But going forward from here, I don't really want to be working with this as my guide track. I want to get Chelsea's vocal on its own, so I can take out the guitars. I can play around with chords, I can change the chords, I can try new things without having that stuff in the background being annoying, but still having Chelsea's vocal there to lead me through. So the next thing I do is I've done a quick guide guitar track along to that. It's nothing special, just plug the DI in and just lay down a basic guitar track. So I did that, laid the guitar down, got the structure there, sent Chelsea just the guitar track by itself, and then she's able to track a vocal for me at home. She has a basic recording setup, I guess. She's got a mic. You could do this on your phone, whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be great. Just get an isolated vocal and then tracked it along with that, and then sent me back the isolated vocal file, which I have now, and then we can listen to Chelsea's vocal and my guide guitar together. I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become. Perfect. And now I can take my guide guitar out. I've got Chelsea's vocal there. It's all set to the BPM, and I can play around with that. And because these are just guide tracks, if I do decide while I'm getting started I want to speed up or slow the track down, I can just put both of these into flex time and then just play with the tempo. And once that's locked in, then we can start tracking stuff. You definitely always want to get your tempo sorted right at the start, so that if you do start recording real instruments, which will probably happen at some point in the process, that you don't have to then flex time those in the actual recording. So getting that tempo sorted at the beginning is super important. And that is basically the foundation of how we're going to get started. Now I'm going to go and listen to my inspiration tracks, and then I'm going to work on probably some drum layers. I usually like to start with getting a nice beat grounded in the track, and then we'll kind of muck around from there. So once I've got a bit of something to show you, we'll be back. All right, so I ended up actually just grabbing my electric and having a play with some rhythms and changed a few chords up, and even just played with the structure slightly. So we've now ended up with kind of two guitar tracks, and we're sort of getting a feel for which direction we want to take it in. One of them has a sort of straighter rhythm like this. You're throwing dirt on my name. I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but... So like a really punchy groove for the chorus, or we have something that's a little bit, not as straight groove, a bit more like, has some more pushes to it, something kind of like this. I
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become.
So kind of playing around with rhythms and deciding which direction to take this in. The verse has more of a palm mute feel.
You're throwing dirt on my name all around town, making sure I get the blame for what went down.
But I sent her both ideas. I want to get her input and see what she likes, and then I'm going to start building into this. So once I've confirmed which direction to take this in with Chelsea, then I'm going to start laying some beats down.
You're throwing dirt on my name all around town. I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from some.
Alright, just a quick update. So we ended up going with the first half of the first idea that we had with the guitars, which sounded like this. That's our little verse groove. And then we went with the straighter rhythm in the chorus. And I've done a bit of a crunchier guitar sound for this. So that's kind of like our overall vibe for the song. And I plan to have like some sort of like crunchy bass and like some synth kind of doing all the same sort of hits. It's going to be a bit of a big pop anthem kind of thing, just big wall of sound kind of stuff. And the guitar's going to be in there, but it won't necessarily be as dominant as it is now. It's just kind of like our foundational layer. So anyway, I kind of tracked the guitars. I did those properly, double tracked some stuff. I also have like a clean, like full chord kind of sound behind that. It didn't sound very good when I was trying to distort it, so then I just turned them down, and then I just did like power chords for the crunchy sound. It's just like too many notes, it was just getting a bit gross, so doing the power chord sounded good for the crunch. And then I've gone through and programmed some drums, so pretty much just going for like the pop kind of sound. Not going to do any acoustic drums in this particular production, so from the couple of references that I've been given, it's all very like pop drums. There's nothing acoustic drum sounding about it, so we've gone with fully programming it. And I found some pretty cool sounds. I'll show you. This might not be very common, but I'm using SSD5 to do my drum samples. So there is under Create, you can go to samples down here, and then you can find your drum libraries. And I've just got a whole bunch of stuff in here, and then I just go through and audition sounds, and then I can lay it out in here. And then in the mixer, you can go through and level stuff, and then you can route it as well to different outputs. So I have this set to multiple outputs, and then it's coming back into Logic with this kind of thing here. So I've got like kick, snare, claps, all the hat sort of sounds I'm using, a couple of effects, a second snare, which is kind of like our verse snare, and then a wet snap sound. So, and then I have all these other sounds that I have brought into Logic and just placed a lot of like reverse sounds, kind of like whip kind of sounds, this sort of stuff. Bass drop. All the kind of hype, excitement kind of sounds. Found this fun little effect. I've had this effect in like, I think it was like a free library from That Sound for ages, and it was like this sloshy drum sound, which I always thought was cool, but I just never had a place to use it. But it worked really well in this mix, so I'll have to show you that. And I just kind of edit it to be in time with the track, and it just sort of highlights some accents at the end of the chorus. And same deal, chopped up a bunch of stuff to do some big accents coming into the last chorus. So that's kind of all like the pop stuff that goes on here. It takes a bit of time to kind of lay this stuff in, find good places to use it, but man, it adds a lot of excitement to the track. So if you have a listen to that, that's kind of like the end of the bridge into the chorus.
I couldn't care less, but I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but
makes it like hit really nice. So this is coming along pretty sweet. That's sort of what it's sounding like at the moment anyway. We've got this kind of groove.
making sure I get the blame for what went down.
It's sounding pretty cool. I always try and process sounds as I go when I'm producing songs like this, because it makes such a big difference to what I want to do, like my next step forward. So I'm trying to kind of half mix it, as I go, like define these sounds and get them sounding as good as possible in this process, and then kind of moving on to the next sound. Obviously at the end I'll come back and do a proper mix to the song, but there's a lot of effects and plugins that I'm kind of adding along the way that are kind of creating the sounds that I'm chasing. So even like the guitar, you can see our guitar channel's got like a whole bunch of stuff going on here. I'm running through the bass dude. I love this for like kind of guitar sounds. It just works so well with my Telecaster. I'm always able to get a really cool sound out of this. And then got some compression with Pro C, and then doing a little bit of sort of like drive with the Distinct Pro from Kiive Audio, and then a little bit of EQ, getting rid of some mids, kind of scooping it out. And then I've got this Time Machine plugin from Safari Pedals, and this is like filtering the sound I've got on the 50s mode. And have a listen to what it sounds like when we turn that off. Just crazy. It's just taking out all the kind of like top end jangly stuff in the guitar, making it really kind of meaty and sort of filtered in a nice way. So loving that. And then I have the L1 limiter from Cornef, and this is a free plugin, which is really cool. And there's some hidden features in here which I'm using. So we've got the punchy input shape and then the input tone thick, and this is making it a little bit thicker. Have a listen to what it sounds like when we flatten that out. Just makes it nice and thick. So love that, and that's a free plugin. That's awesome. Basically like a Waves L1 limiter, which is really cool. And then just like a tiny bit of delay, just an eighth note, 5% of that, and that's sort of like making my guitar sound. But you can have a listen to what it sounds like. If we turn all these plugins off, have a listen to how lame the guitar sounds.
Making sure I get the blame for what went down.
So that's kind of where we're at the moment. Got some drums down, got the guitars kind of sorted for like the main rhythmic kind of stuff and all the rhythmic ideas. And then I'm going to move into adding some bass to this now. So I'm going to see if maybe some bass guitar, a bit crunchy stuff, but also layering it with maybe like some 808 bass. So I'm going to play around with that and I'll get back to you. Okay, quick little update. A track bass, I use my Fender Precision bass. Precision, I can't say that word for some reason. I use my Fender Precision bass, and I use the Sansamp bass driver. Those are our settings. And yeah, took a clean DI and the Sansamp at the same time. And then while I tracked that, I ran the bass through the Audioscape Opto and my Warm Audio 76, which I have down here. And so got a nice kind of compressed bass signal on the way in, which looks like this. A couple little spikes on the DI, but the Sansamp's pretty tidy. And then yeah, we processed that a little bit, and I decided while I was tracking I needed to restring the bass. I bought some strings the other day. The bass strings were sounding a little dull, and I restrung it and it sounds pretty sweet. So this is what our bass sounds like. We've got some synth bass underneath it as well, so we've got like a sub bass. Kind of like a grindy, dirty saw kind of bass sound, and they're all blended together to give us our bass sound, which is like this. There's a little guitar riff that I was playing around with. It's very, very simple. It's kind of the thing with pop music, like the more complicated you make parts, the worse it gets. So this is a really simple guitar part, but it works really well. I'll probably end up putting some little effect on it or something. Just fills out all the gaps. Makes it sound pretty nice. And yeah, again, kept the bass pretty simple. I wanted it just to really beef things up, and we don't really need the bass to be adding too many crazy runs or fills in this song. It's really just about making the low end fat and punchy. And it's adding a little bit of color and dirt as well. So the bass is really filling this out in a good way. So the bridge is a bit of like a build up. We want the bridge to start kind of soft.
You're so obsessed.
And then it builds.
In my defense,
Got a harmony part.
I couldn't care less.
And then it goes.
You're so obsessed.
So that's kind of where we are at the moment. I am kind of done for the day. So I've kind of just been jumping in here throughout the day, doing little bits and pieces. I'm kind of feeling like I'll leave this for now and come back to it tomorrow. Maybe add some more kind of synth parts, maybe some more little lead bits, and kind of see where else we can take this. I feel like it's got a strong foundation at the moment, just needs a little bit of color. I think there's going to be a lot of vocal tracks in this song, so I don't know whether I need a lot of lead parts at the moment. I feel like we're going to probably do some cool vocal bits and pieces, so we'll kind of see how that goes when it comes to vocal tracking. But yeah, just going to chuck some more stuff in. So see you guys in the next segment, which will be instantaneous, but for me, it'll be later tomorrow. Okay, so it's another day. I have come back. I've done a little bit of tweaking, sort of played with some sounds, as well as added a couple of additional layers, added a couple of extra guitars and a couple of extra synth parts. And overall, I feel like the track is really close. And then we just need to get the vocals in here, doing harmonies, all of that stuff. And then we'll have a really good idea of what else possibly is needed in here. But what we've got at the start is a bit of an effect. So I've got like the verse chords going with the one knob filter, sort of sweeping up for one progression, and that's this little bit here. And then we also have a little vocal line, which is sort of like a hook of the song, and then a bit of an echo after it. So trying to get a little bit of an interesting effect to start the song off, and then straight into the verse.
You're so obsessed. You're throwing dirt on my name.
Keeping it kind of chill at the start, really thin sort of sounding. Bring in a second little guitar layer halfway through the verse.
I hate to call you out, but I'm sick of hearing about this.
So really simple, but just helps bring it up. I added an extra guitar layer to the chorus, put a capo up really high on the neck, and played the chords a little bit higher. It's just getting some big chord sound. And then we have some synth laid in with that, just doing big chords as well. So sounding pretty cool. I'll probably tweak that a little bit, but overall kind of the vibe I'm chasing. And then that combined with the bass guitar and the synth bass. Nice and thick. And then we have a little lead part. It's playing like a muted lead line. Just create some nice movement under the chorus. And then we also have this little high fuzzy lead part, which is just adding just a little bit more interest. It's going to be pretty low in the mix. How cool is that? That's creating like a really cool fuzz effect using the Kiive Audio Distinct Pro. So I've just got that after the guitar amp sim and then just smashing it. It sounds really cool. So we've got that in there. And then we've also got a synth line mirroring that as well. Just a little bit of extra color in there. And then all of it together.
I feel sorry for you.
It's sounding cool, and it's going to be even better once Chelsea does the proper vocals and harmonies and all that stuff. It's going to be huge. So then coming out of the chorus, we kind of drop it back and take everything away, and we just keep that little guitar line in there that was halfway through the first verse.
You think your reputation is all my...
We've got the kick in straight away. We've got muted bass, so the second verse is a bit bigger. And then in the bridge, it really breaks down, so we strip it right back in the bridge. And all we have at the start is just some palm mute guitars and a little synth pad.
You're so obsessed.
A little bit of percussion.
With my success.
The idea is we're going to really build it up.
In my defense.
Little bass harmony. The synth pad.
I couldn't care less. You're so obsessed.
So here the synth pad opens up, had a bit of automation rolling off the cutoff, so it helps it open up and get a bit exciting leading into the big section of the bridge. And even through the big section of the bridge, we're still building. So we bring in a fuzz part again. We've got a high octave and a low octave, and they bounce between an octave note up and down the guitar. Got the one knob filter. So that's a really cool part. And then we also have this little staccato guitar line that just kind of fades in, just kind of builds up the momentum. And yeah, just the same stuff, big chords, same sort of sounds, and it just really ramps up into that last chorus. That's kind of where I've got it so far. That's sort of like the ideas that I've had. Some nice kind of gritty synth chords with the distorted guitar, as well as just big punchy pop drums. Yeah, I think it's starting to sound pretty cool. So there might be a couple of little things that we add or tweak to this a little bit later. Once I get Chelsea in to do the vocals, might do a second part to this video, and we'll see how it all turns out in the end. Alright, so it's been a couple of weeks since I shot that last bunch of video content, and so yesterday Chelsea was in the studio and we tracked her vocals for the song, and it's turned out really cool. And so I'm going to run you through what we did, what kind of layering we've done, and yeah, what the process is typically like when I go about tracking and producing vocals for something like a pop style production. So we use one of my favorite mics on the vocals, the Lawton Audio FC387. That just has a really nice detailed sound about it, which is really great for pop music, getting the vocals to sit on top of the mix, and especially in a track like this. It's a really big song, helps the vocal to cut through it really easily. So I'll take you through the typical way I would generally go about getting a vocalist set up for doing their performance. And generally I'll get them in the room with the vocal mic, get them some headphones, they can control the level in there, and then we'll play the track through. I'll make sure the track's not too loud so that I can push their vocal up loud enough that it's really loud of the track if needed, and we're not kind of clipping and causing any distortion on the headphones out there. So just making sure that your mix is not too loud is really good when tracking vocals. So if you have everything summed to a mix bus like I do, you can come over here and everything's over here, then I can just grab this and pull it down, and then I can have the vocals set to the stereo out, and then this can just act as a volume fader for the entire mix, but the vocal won't get affected. So really great way of sort of managing levels and vocals while tracking. And then we'll typically just do a take, and while they're doing a take, I'll be setting the vocal preamp. So I'll be watching that, making sure we're getting a good gain that's not getting too hot at any point, so we don't want it to really peak out or anything like that. You know, I'm not typically looking for a really saturated vocal sound on a pop song, so getting just a good signal there, and then we're running through a little bit of compression as well. I had her running through the Audioscape Opto, just a couple of dBs of compression, really sort of just glued it all together. Makes the vocal way nicer to track and way better for them to perform because they can hear everything really well. So tracking with a compressor on vocals is always really good. And then I usually have like a high pass filter set on the input channel as well. So we're rolling off anything from around kind of like 80 Hertz already. So we're getting rid of any potential rumble at the source, which is great while tracking vocals. And then coming into Logic. And so you can see these are our vocals here. We've got our verse vocal, chorus vocal, and bridge. I kind of just split it up into 3 separate channels. I don't always do that. Sometimes I'll just get it all onto one channel, but this seemed to work well for this song in particular. So with the verses, we're keeping it pretty simple, just like a lead vocal and then a little bit of double tracking halfway through the verse. And that's just to keep the dynamics not too big. We want the verses to be a little bit smaller sounding so that when that big chorus hits, it really opens up. And then when the chorus hits, we go into triple track vocals. So we've got her lead vocal down the center and then 2 double tracks panned out. And you can hard pan these or you can half pan them, just whatever to your heart's desire sounds good to you. I usually go, I guess like 75-ish kind of percent, and that sort of sounds pretty good to me. If we're going for that really wide sound, then yeah, just slam them, hard pan them. And that's kind of the typical process through most of the track. In the bridge, it breaks down. We just have some sort of gentle double tracking in this section and then back into our triple tracking as it builds up. and basically just any section where it's really big and loud, triple tracking. Anytime you want something to be a bit more intimate, we'll go back to that single vocal. And so this section here, we had that cool little breakdown section where it all came down and then it all came back in for the last chorus. Chelsea wanted to change that up a bit and make it go a little bit longer and bring it down even more. So we've taken out a lot of those like accents and we've gone back to just a guitar with a bit of a filter effect on it, and it sort of sweeps up into the chorus. It's pretty cool actually. So you can have a quick look and listen to what that's doing.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from...
So that kind of vibe with the whole filter sweep out sounds really cool. I didn't use Wave's one knob filter for this one. I actually just went in and created my own filter sweep and playing with the bands in the EQ and resonant peaks and all that stuff. So you can have a lot of fun with that and get some really interesting sounds. So you can see all the automation here on the guitar bus, bunch of stuff going on. I can show you the EQ as it all unfolds.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take...
So you can see it sweeping out. There's like 187 channels here. So you can see we went pretty nuts on the vocals. So these are all our vocals here. Now, so Chelsea did all the lead stuff and a bunch of backings and ad-lib parts. And then she asked me if I'll do the harmonies. So I actually got to do a little bit of singing on the track, which is fun. Basically, just really focus on the chorus and the big sections of the song for the harmony. Like I said before, we want to keep those verses a little bit smaller for this. So in the chorus, there's a couple of layers going on. I've got a double-tracked harmony layer, which is kind of lower than her part, so a third below her vocal. And then we've got this high harmony that's sort of just hammering one note above everything on certain lines. We're going to have that tucked pretty low in the mix, so you can't really hear it that well. And then I just have a low octave of her vocal, and I've just brought that down pretty quiet. That again is not going to be super audible. It's just going to be there to thicken the vocal up, because if you take all these layers out, you really feel that the mix sort of like is missing something. But I also don't want it to sound like there's heaps of my voice there. We want her to be the focus, so we're not going to have that stuff like super loud in the mix. But this is kind of what it sounds like with all of our layers in the chorus.
I feel sorry for you, hearing what you've become, but that doesn't mean that I'll take this from some...
And then this is my favorite part. I did a little bit of a vocal stack, so these are all just one note harmonies stacked on top of each other.
Low life denies.
So pretty cool. I love that stuff. So that sounds massive in the mix.
Low life denies.
I did want some big impact on that vocal line there. And so we've got our chorus sounding like really big. We've got all these layers in there, all the guitars, synth stuff, all the vocals now, and the harmonies, the double tracks. It's really starting to sound pretty big. So with any of those layers, they're pretty much all double tracked and panned to the left and right, so we will get a nice wide stereo effect with it. So, and the lead vocal can really take the center image, and we just want all the backings and harmonies to kind of like hug around the vocal. So everything within that vocal stack is just double tracked, pan hard left and right. So we've got two of each harmony. Now another cool little trick, I don't even know if Chelsea knows this is in there, just a classic little trick that you can use in pop songs or anything where you want to add a little bit of like airiness to a vocal. You can just do like a whisper track. So I've got a whisper vocal behind hers in the bridge. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. I'll turn it up for you.
You're so obsessed.
It's kind of creepy, isn't it?
You're so obsessed.
So you wouldn't have it loud, but once you have it turned down and quiet in the mix, it's just like adds this nice cool little airy effect to the vocal, even to the point where you don't really notice it unless you take it away and you're like, oh, where'd that kind of like nice air on the vocal disappear to? So just a cool little trick, and that kind of continues through the bridge as it builds up. Chelsea also had this really cool idea of just doing like a kind of chanty vocal. So over the top of the bridge vocal melody, she does more of like less of a singing kind of thing and more of a shouting sort of vocal vibe, and it sounds really cool, and we just laid it like 1,000 times. And then I did a couple of extra on the end, just sort of yelling the same thing that she's doing. It almost has a bit of like a cheerleader kind of like chanty vibe to it.
You're so obsessed.
So I think that sounds really cool. And then played against the track.
You're so obsessed.
Just makes it sound really cool. And so that kind of thing continues through the bridge and all the way down into our breakdown chorus. And so the bridge is like a really climatic section. So the vocals have kind of really brought everything together here. I'm not sure if the track really needs anything else. Music-wise, I'm going to have another listen in a day or two and just sort of see what I'm feeling. But I think it could just do with some final mixing and tweaking and a couple of extra little effects here and there. And I'd say it's pretty close to what we're looking for. So you can see we've got a ton of vocals here. And so I've already comped all the takes. I've done all the tuning, everything's ready to go. I've cleaned out a lot of the silences. If there's anything that's a little bit out of time, I'll go through and sort of tidy that stuff up too, but it's all sounding pretty tight. And so you can see we've just got a ton of drums, ton of percussion samples, a couple of bass layers. I ended up changing the bass sound as well on the synth bass. Went with something that stands out a bit better. Mixed in with our bass guitar. I think that's pretty cool. Then we've got all those guitar layers that we did, little lead lines, some fuzz lead parts, a bunch of like sweeping automations through the guitars as well, which is really cool, creating interest. And then our synth, just sort of big saw synth kind of sounds, just adding to those big chords that the guitars are doing, as well as sort of like a sweeping pad in the bridge. And then just a ton of vocals. I wouldn't say musically that this is a super complex song. You can hear the parts all fairly simple, but they just come together in such a fun way that the song's really enjoyable to listen to and just a really fun pop track. So pretty happy with how it's come together. Chelsea's pretty stoked, and once it's released into the world, I will put a link in the description below. So if anyone's still watching this video around that time, go check our song out because it's a banger. So I hope you guys enjoyed having a little bit of a dive into the process of producing a song, and maybe you've just found it interesting, or maybe you learned a few things along the way. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you want to show your support to this channel, check the description link below. Make sure you check out my website with all the drum samples and mixing courses, as well as checking out any of the plugin companies that I'm affiliated with. You'll find their links in the description below. And also, if you do your shopping online at Sweetwater, if you buy your gear there, if you use my affiliate link, a small commission comes back to the channel, and that is a great way of showing your support because it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it just gives a little kickback to the channel, which is super appreciated. If you thought that fuzz guitar sound was really cool, then check out this demo that I did for the Kiive Audio Distinct Pro.